Hey, what is up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today as we're going to be talking about probably the two biggest topics that went down this week in the world of professional wrestling. It's Wednesday. I've tweeted about this. I got a lot of stuff going on in my life and I'm not able to really crack out videos as often as I once did, but I can honestly tell you that I really do appreciate that I do have a lot of people out there that watch my videos and still like topic videos where I talk about certain things that are going on in the world of professional wrestling. And for anybody who's been reading my tweets talking about the fact that my dad is really sick and he's in the hospital, I really appreciate everyone who had good thoughts and sent good vibes my way. I really appreciate it. That's one of the main reasons why I haven't been making the videos. But here we are. Late on a Wednesday night. I'm glad that I have an outlet to talk about something like this because honestly it is a very big release for me to talk about things. In this video we're going to be talking about the topic of Jimmy Snuka passing away. I can't honestly remember if this happened Sunday night or if it happened on Monday morning, but the big topic of debate that was going down at the time was, is WWE going to give Jimmy Snuka the tip of the hat, where basically he gets the rest in peace sort of thing at the beginning of the show, and then of course he gets the big sort of 2-minute "This is your life" vignette of thank you for everything you've done, putting us on the map. I'm sure that WWE honestly was put in a very sort of awkward situation. I'm sort of going to be relating the Jimmy Snuka death to what it was like when Chris Benoit died, and also what it'll be like in the future when O.J. Simpson dies. When it comes down to this, Chris Benoit is never going to be convicted because of the fact that he committed suicide after the fact that he killed his family, killing his wife and killing his son. O.J. Simpson, he got off on it. I know there's a television show that's being filmed right now where basically it's people trying to prove that O.J. didn't kill Nicole. But I mean, honestly, do you really know anybody out there who thinks that O.J. didn't do it? It is what it is. But when it comes down to it, O.J. Simpson was a damn good running back. He had a Hall of Fame career. He was a Heisman winner at USC. Basically, almost everything he ever did with the football in his hands, he was the best at what he did. But what had happened during the 90s with him, getting in the off the field disputes with his wife, and then the murder that happened. I think that is what's going to most people will remember O.J. Simpson for. There'll come a day, whether if it's when O.J.'s in jail or when O.J. gets out of jail, O.J. Simpson's going to pass away someday. And is the NFL going to publicly tweet out rest in peace O.J., put together the best of O.J. Simpson? In this year, O.J.'s been a real hot topic because of the anniversary that just went down. He had the Cuba Gooding Jr. show. He had the 30 for 30 that seemed like lasted about a year and a half. I believe it was 8-hour documentary on O.J. Simpson. And if you just watch the first episode, it was possibly the best shining light to put O.J. Simpson in. It's just at the end of it is when they had O.J. meet Nicole, and then they had their first dispute. And from there, the documentary went on and everything like that. To me, honestly, if you rewound the clock, I can remember in the late 90s, early 2000s when I got into tape trading and started watching a lot of shoot interviews that were done by RF Video at the time. And they would talk about Allentown and Jimmy Snuka and the story that went down. And I honestly would hear it, but it would honestly sort of go in one ear and out the next because I didn't know enough. And it wasn't until about 2013, which I believe was the anniversary date of the murder that happened that is sort of pointed at Jimmy Snuka for killing his girlfriend at the time, and putting him under. And when that was publicized, it sort of blew the case up to the point where the district attorney decided that they were going to try Jimmy Snuka because of the fact they were able to look and see that Jimmy Snuka wrote about what happened in his book, and it sort of shed more light on what happened, and they believe they had enough evidence to try and prosecute him. From there is when Jimmy Snuka's lawyers, as well as Jimmy Snuka's family, were trying to say that Jimmy Snuka, due to his old age and due to his wrestling career, I'm not trying to think that they said that he had amnesia or Alzheimer's, but they just were basically saying that he was old and that he was dying. He had I think that he had some sort of cancer, and it was debated for a long period of time whether he was going to be tried or not. And I'd taken shots at Jimmy Snuka for basically saying that he was going to show up at wrestling conventions. He was named to be at the Dallas WrestleCon, but he ended up pulling his name from it. But then again, he was named for the Orlando WrestleCon. And I think due to an overwhelming response to people learning about the case and learning that Jimmy he was going to be tried for this murder, but decided to say that he was incompetent to be able to go there. But he's competent enough to jump on a jet, fly down to Orlando, sign some autographs, and take some pictures and cash a check. It is what it is. Jimmy Snuka is one of the reasons why WWF is WWE today. When Vince McMahon wanted to take his company and spread it into a worldwide sort of United States expansion where they grew out of the territory they were in and they were spreading, Jimmy Snuka was one of the biggest names in professional wrestling. And, if you believe the story the way that it's told, that's the main reason why Vince showed up and handed off the magical briefcase and basically said, "Are we all good here?" And basically Jimmy Snuka walked away a free man, even though the coroner in the case looked at the body and basically told the police that this case needs to be tried as a homicide. The police turned a blind eye and let him go. Jimmy Snuka, to me, honestly, I'm up there. I'm a 35-year-old guy who loves professional wrestling. But to me, honestly, I don't think that I'm old enough to be in the age bracket to say that I love Jimmy Snuka, that I watched his glory days of professional wrestling. The earliest recollection for me that I really remember of Jimmy Snuka was the end of his, full-time career when he was wrestling The Undertaker for WrestleMania. Anything else with Jimmy Snuka, like when he came out, I believe at WrestleMania 5, maybe it was in WrestleMania 4, he just made an appearance and he just had an entrance. He walked down to the ring. He wasn't the special guest referee. He wasn't the outside enforcer. He just came down, and it was very awkward because I believe the two guys that were going to wrestle, they had their entrances. They were already in the ring getting ready to wrestle, and then they just bring Snuka out. Comes down, walks around, and leaves. You don't even really see him exit. The last time I watched the show, kept on thinking maybe, Snuka was going to be in the match somehow and play into what was going down, and he just wasn't there. He was done. I think that honestly, a lot like what people do with Chris Benoit, if you're able to separate what happened in Allentown, Jimmy Snuka, put WWF on the map, and he needs to be remembered for that. But to me, honestly, WWE ran the special on Chris Benoit because of the fact that Chris Benoit, at the time of his death being announced, was a WWE legend at the time, where he had been a WWE champion. He was a big part of the locker room. He helped a lot of guys. They were thinking of making him some sort of a coach. They didn't have the performance center at the time, but he was sort of going to be a guy that was on the roster that was going to be helping people out. I believe it's been debated, and most people believe it. He was going to win the ECW championship on the pay-per-view. the night that he was found dead, and that was when he was supposed to be, I believe, the pay-per-view was in Kansas City, and he was supposed to be there, and that was the night that they ended up putting the championship on John Morrison, who filled in, and Morrison beat CM Punk for the title. Was it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the way it all went down. It's been a while since we thought about that. Morrison, God, talent. That guy just never really, took off. Chris Benoit, they put together the Monday Night Raw special where they canceled the Monday Night Raw in, I believe, Corpus Christi. Vince stood in an empty arena and basically outlined what had happened, where basically a WWF wrestler was found dead. They didn't know what had happened, and as the show was airing on USA, news started to roll in that the evidence was pointing that Chris did what he did, and USA and WWE, they didn't really have an exit for what was doing. I mean, you couldn't really just cut the feed on WWE Monday Night Raw and start showing an episode of White Collar or Suits or Chris Lee or anything like that that's going down on USA. So it just aired and it rolled out, and you come back the next night on Sci-Fi with ECW. Vince McMahon opened the show and openly apologized and said that more facts were coming out, and at the time of the I believe at the time, Raw was only 2 hours. At the time of the 2-hour special, it was not known what had happened. And they apologized and just basically said that Benoit would no longer be mentioned in WWE broadcasting for the next foreseeable future. And it took a while for Chris Benoit to start popping up on DVDs again. I mean, there's a lot of big DVDs. Like the Chris Jericho documentary that came out around 2010, 2011. Benoit is a big part of Benoit is a big part of Chris Jericho's life, and from listening to Chris Jericho's podcast, they spent a good amount of time together, and they weren't able to really put him in there. And there's been documentaries on TLC matches, and they had to find wiggle room around there. With the birth of the network, in 2013, they decided that a lot of the things were going to be left untouched. Sometimes, words are taken out when Benoit is favored in a certain way to make him look good. Sometimes it's left in. It just matters what's been edited in the past and taken out and put in and things like that. But I honestly think that that's sort of the way they should have done Jimmy Snuka. But from listening to Dave Meltzer, he said that basically they were damned if they do and damned if they don't, and they had to do what they had to do. So, to me, honestly, Jimmy Snuka is always going to be remembered as one hell of a wrestler. From guys like Bully Ray, Mick Foley, all the guys that talk about the fact that they were at the Madison Square Garden show where Jimmy Snuka jumped off the top of the cage. He's got to go down as one of the best wrestlers of all time. But I just wasn't from that time. Even though they wrestled at the same time, Hulk Hogan to me is somebody to me that honestly is one of the best wrestlers of all time. And if he passed away today, I sort of would think that WWE would run the This Is Your Life vignette on Hulk Hogan, talking about what he meant to the company. But at the same point, I'm not going to stomp my feet and say that I'm boycotting Raw if they don't do it because of what happened to Hulk Hogan a few years ago with the whole Gawker sex trial and things like that being passed around the National Enquirer. It is what it is. Hogan did a bad thing, and he's going to have to do his time. Sort of everybody's saying he's going to be coming back sooner than later, but we don't really know. So we'll see. For what it's worth, rest in peace, Jimmy Snuka. I think that you're a murderer. I don't think you care what I think about it. You got away with it, but in the end, you got what you deserved. WWE, I don't hate them for, making it seem like he was the biggest star in the world. But honestly, you can be looked at as a hypocrite because when this murder thing was unraveled and starting to come undone, Jimmy Snuka was wiped off of the WWE website, just like Hulk Hogan was in the same way. But all of a sudden, he passes away. He's on the front page. He gets his whole thing on Monday Night Raw, and it is what it is. So we can debate it and see where it goes from there. But that's the end of it. Rest in peace, Jimmy Snuka.